Continuing.
We have two fantastic guests here, Glen Peloso and Jamie Alexander of Peloso Alexander Interiors. They're here to discuss interior design and, of course, give us some tips and, most importantly, answer our listener questions. So, gentlemen, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us.
Did you say we knew what we were doing?
Are
we on the right show?
Well, we'll find out, that's for sure.
Sorry.
Because, boy, oh boy, we got lots of questions for you. So, first of all, let's say, Glen, you are a regular. I mean, you're one of our interior designers that frequent the show. Usually you come solo, but now you've got a sidekick. So you have to explain how this happened and what are you two up to?
Great, I get the sidekick. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Well, you are the newbie, okay,
sure,
but that won't
yeah.
be for long.
Listen, you should just be pleased that you have a name. Usually you're just a new guy for about the first 6 months. So Jamie and I have been working together. Sort of. I mean, Jamie has a bunch of retail stores as well as having the design firm, and he and I have worked together on a couple of projects. And then we were sort of sitting around several nights, and I could say that wine wasn't involved, but that would be a lie.
A bit of a lie.
Yeah. So there was a little bit of wine, and we sort of got discussing, what it is I really love about the profession, and the
Let's
things
be
that
honest, what we really don't like about it sometimes.
Right. And it just worked out that the things that I really liked were the things that he didn't like so much, and the things that I don't like were the things that he quite liked. So it worked out as a really
You
good
complement
thing.
one another.
Right. That's sort of how it worked out. So we started working together.
And really, sort of going through that process of having somebody else just inspire where you're already going, it's kind of like, oh, wow, I was thinking that too. Oh, isn't that great? Oh, yeah. It's sort of that.
We all need that,
Right.
right? I mean, everybody needs that. It's just...
And the what if, and you say, but we could do it like this, and yes, and then you could do that, and that's right, and then we could, and so you add on, you get these great sort of creative layers till you finally end up with a product that's really quite good.
Well, it's like clients that are working with us now as we're working together as a team, they'll look at me, look at him, and they're wondering, okay, when are they going to get on the same page? But what the great thing that happens is the evolution of design ends up happening. So he'll say something, I'm like, he'll say something, he'll go, and then all of a sudden it was like, oh, wow, but what about this?
Yeah, of course.
So they're going to actually get the benefit of the two of us kind of hammering this out with them.
How exciting. Now, for Peloso Alexander Interiors, tell us, what are you offering for our listeners out there and all your clients? You have a huge book of business individually, but now collectively. What do you do for your clients?
Well, I heard you could use a shoe closet. We do things like that.
Right.
Yes, but again, that was just comparing my shoes and to the amount of glasses that you actually have. And we decided that my shoes take up more space. I absolutely agree with you.
Yes.
But what else do you gentlemen do?
Well, I mean, there's still a whole bunch of projects that are, of course, residential as well as commercial projects. Lots of
So you do
hospitality.
both. You
Yeah,
do
we absolutely
residential,
both.
you do commercial, but you also do hospitality.
Absolutely.
Okay.
One of the things that we pride ourselves in, being that we're kind of vets now, it's 20 years that I've been in business myself, and Glen's at the same type of, long term. The reality is, we've sort of made a mandate that we'll take on 300,000 square feet, we'll take on 300 square feet. It's really about the relationship with the client and the evolution of design. So because we've been doing it for 20 years, we can kind of say, not necessarily in a pompous way, we get to work with who we want to, but we can work with all size projects. So we'll gladly take on that hotel, but at the same time, we just completed a great 500 square foot condo, and the client is absolutely excited and ecstatic that he's working with us.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, it's good that you mentioned the 500 square foot condo, for example, because we all know that the average size of a condo due to prices is shrinking in the downtown core. And you know what I'm talking about when we see the boilerplate design, where it's the same dark floors and the same whitewashed walls and the same granite. And people try to get to fit in this little minimalist mold that most people aren't even comfortable with. So what are you seeing as maybe a trend, if anything, in the area of small spaces? What do you see emerging, or what do you think should be happening?
I would start by saying there's a lot of gizmos and gadgets out there. But some of these gizmos and gadgets have been out for years and years, like the Murphy wall bed, for example. So all of a sudden you're seeing everybody think, what about that second room? What about that space that's supposed to be a den that really doesn't have a door or anything? And so Murphy beds are coming back. So there's a lot of those gizmos and gadgets that are creating trends again. So Murphy beds are really evolving once more. But moreover, I find that people are realizing just because I have a small space doesn't mean the aid of design won't help me.
In fact, I mean, to that point, that often if you have a really small space, you have to use it exceptionally well so that it functions in the way that you need it to. I mean, people have often come from a much larger space and they're getting to be in a smaller space. So having things that, like the Murphy bed, are things that do more than one thing. You have a coffee table that also turns into a dining table, a hall table that can expand to turn into a larger eating space, storage that you might have a storage ottoman that allows you that turns into an occasional bed. It's just a single bed, but on those occasions when somebody stays, you want to have something. And those are the kinds of things that I think that as people come from bigger spaces, they look at this space and think, that's my guest bedroom. But the guest is only going to be here for 5% of the whole time that you're living in that condo. Why don't we make it something that is a useful office for you,
Absolutely.
as a closet or whatever it is that you need, you particularly for shoes, you might need that second bedroom for the clues, and then have some little pull-out for those odd occasions when somebody comes so that you can house everybody.
Because, gentlemen, we did kind of go from Murphy beds long ago, right? And then we went to the day bed thing. Right? The day bed, make it visible, don't put it away. And then now we're going back to the Murphy bed.
And I think why we're going back to the Murphy bed, years ago, Murphy beds were exactly that. It was just a wall board on a wall coming out. And now we are seeing Murphy beds that are a desk. And so when the Murphy bed comes down, the desk is underneath of it. We did a project where we mounted the TV to the front of the Murphy bed. And so everybody wouldn't have known that, here on either side of these beautiful bookcases in the middle is a bed where the TV's mounted to it. But when it all came down because of the height that we have between the floor and the bottom of the bed, bam, there you can put a TV screen.
What a great party trick, guys.
Exactly.
And another thing we were just, as Glenn was mentioning about one of our spaces, thinking outside the box. We just had a client that we did, Paul's client, and when we did his closet, we actually put his office in the closet. And people are like, well, what's going on there? But the reality is, for years and years and years in his small condo, he had a little desk always shoved in the corner, and the desk was taking away him being able to have a nightstand, was taking away his ability to have a dresser, et cetera, et cetera. So when we did the closet, this is where the trick of using closet organizers or having a designer design a closet for you, we were able to give him about 3 linear feet, filing drawer, the whole bit, and all around him is his suit coats and et cetera, et cetera. To him, it doesn't matter because it just needs to be a place to pitch the laptop.
So it's functional for him.
Right.
So you're really saying the trend now is for these smaller spaces, Simon, as you know, they're popping up more and more, and that is the future, right? As we keep rising up higher and higher. It's finding clever ways in which to not have to feel that you're sacrificing because you're moving into those smaller spaces. It's how to really embrace it, and there's clever ways to do so.
Like there's a very simple, great idea. You have, if you think about it, if you had a space that was 10 by 10 and had 10-foot ceiling, so your floor space is 100 square feet. Your wall space is 400 square feet. So people often find another piece of furniture to put into the room that's going to help them. And I keep saying, why don't we just use this wall? You don't walk on the walls. You don't need it. And you have 400 square feet of wall and just 100 square feet of flooring. If you give up, even if you give up 10 square feet of flooring to gain 100 square feet of storage, it makes lots of sense. So
Brilliant.
Things like the walls are really your friend as just a very simple rule.
Fantastic. Now, our listeners will be really mad at us, Simon, because, we have tons of questions, okay? Designer questions. And
Bring it on.
We wait for when you guys come on. So I hope you're okay with this. So
Absolutely.
we picked a few here, and we'll see what we can get through.
Yeah.
So let's do the first one.
Yep. Question number 1. I have small, pokey windows. Her word, not mine. I have small, pokey windows in my home. I have new lights and I've painted lighter colors. What can I do in terms of window coverings to maintain the new light and add some elegance?
I would start by saying, if you have quote-unquote pokey windows, you may want to keep all your window treatments to the sides of those windows.
Okay, don't cover them up.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you're going to do operable drapes, meaning that the drapes actually open and close to create privacy, make sure that you order your panels and your drapery rods long enough so that those panels just sort of touch the trim of the window. So all of that material stays on the outside. If you got into Roman blinds or roller blinds, you're going to take at least 4 inches from the top away using a roller blind. If we did a Roman blind, when that's all stacked, we're going to lose what, Glenn? Maybe a foot?
Yeah.
About a foot. So really, if we just kept everything to the sides, it would create some elegance. Drapery panels always do a nice job of that. And as well, think of maybe accentuating the height a little bit and raising the height of that rod, not just making it wider, but also proportionally make it a bit taller.
Right. So like for me, the really simple, as a really simple rule, if you hide the trim on either side of the window, visually I have no idea whether your windows are pokey or they're Gumby. Like I can't tell whether they're big, wide, because I can't see where the windows end. So I presume that the windows are larger than they are.
So you're creating an optical illusion, basically.
For sure.
Right?
Correct,
Very
yeah.
clever. Okay, how about this one? Bought a home, not fond of the exterior colors. There's a lot going on. Okay, so we know these type of houses, right? It's very busy.
Yeah.
So do you recommend painting the garage door the same as the front door in this case? Because obviously they have a lot happening here.
I mean, you absolutely can. I would say your garage door and all of your trim should go together so that they all just sort of fade away. The one thing that you can, I mean, for me, the one place where you're allowed to have fun with a color is your front door. And it's also, I mean, from a sales point of view, I mean, I don't know whether you can find this, but it's so much easier for me to, when I'm back home going, okay, so what houses did we see?
To remember it.
The one with the blue door, the
That's
one with
right.
the red door. That it's a great remembrance. So if you're selling, that's a really important tip. But also when you own it, having that sort of clarity of entrance, but everything else around it can go all into the same color, particularly if the brick is complex.
So I guess also, Jamie, like, treating it special. I mean, that front entrance should be a little special, right?
Yeah, so picking apart the analogy here, let's say we have a house that has white windows, then we have the metal fascia trim, and then we have a stone and a siding.
Okay.
So that's 4 things going all of a sudden. So if we took that aluminum fascia color and did the garage door there,
okay.
then that focal point, like you're saying to me, that could be the front entrance. So oftentimes I say, forget about pot lights over top of the garage door. Make sure you've got pot lights above the front door. There's so many of these, little villages I call you go through when it's a development that, most of the houses are the same. And you'll see there's pot lights above either side of the garage, but you look at the front door and it's dark as can be.
Makes
and they're
no
relying
sense.
on this one little light fixture on one side. Well, maybe it's worth a little bit of investment to put some pot lights above that front door. So if it is red or accentuated, then people are seeing it.
Great point. Okay.
It is your welcome.
We've got time for one more question. It's actually not on our list. I'm gonna trip you up with this one, and it's a real life situation. We've got an older Victorian home in the city, and the exterior of the brick is decaying a little bit. They don't have the budget to reface it or put stone. Would you recommend painting it? And if so, would you go with a lighter color or a darker color on the brick? What would you, just for a typical Victorian? It's got a dark gray black shingle on it right now.
This has got to be a Simon client.
It is. It's an actual Simon client right now.
We may have different opinions on this, but for me, I would paint it in a second because decaying brick is going to look bad no matter what.
Terrible.
If
I
you
agree.
paint it, you're going to end up with something much more elegant. If
Cohesive. Your favorite word.
Thank you. It's always been nice to be reminded of your favorite word. But then, if the trim detail is in black, I would go with a gray or a light gray color, and that way you'll have. So if you think of it sort of like eyeliner, so the trim color becomes like an eyeliner and it accentuates the whole
There's
place.
a contrast.
Yeah, and you'll end up with something that looks very, very elegant, largely because of its simplicity and its cohesiveness, and it'll make the sale that much easier.
What I hear first, a Victorian house. So I agree with Glenn on the same page, which we usually are. I would paint it out because, again, the decaying brick, not going to look pretty no matter what we do. The reality is, come up with a color plan and scheme first. So many people run out when they have a historic style home and just start picking their favorite Martha Stewart color or their favorite Home Depot color,
We've
whatever
seen
it is.
it out there.
And
It's
there's
out
nothing
there.
wrong
Yeah.
with that, but they just pick their favorite one that they've seen on a little chart or a card.
Which
or
looks great on a
little
chart and a
sample.
card.
But they haven't planned out the future of the rest of the colors. So, for example, in that Victorian home, they may actually have wooden framed windows, so we could paint those. They may have wooden fascia and underneath eaves troughs, et cetera, so we could paint those. So make sure you come up with that color plan first. And as I said, when in doubt, call a professional.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, because you know what? A Victorian home is just that. They're so magical. But when they're done wrong, it really makes it even more of an eyesore, don't you agree?
Well, any design office should be able to offer you a color consultation. Let's say it's $500. As one lady said to me that hired us to come do a color consultation, if I would have painted one room or one side of the house wrong, I would have spent more than $500.
Way more than $500, especially correcting it after.
Absolutely.
So, gentlemen, we have so many questions. So I'm going to have to ask you guys, please come back. Are you willing? Because again, they keep piling up, but we have to make sure we answer all our listener questions. So please come back.
We'll provide martinis next time too.
Yeah, we
Martinis.
promise.
Okay.
So what are we doing tomorrow?
They're in. Excellent. So Glen Peloso and Jamie Alexander from Peloso and Alexander Interiors, thank you so much, and we're going to have you back.
Pleasure,
for coming.
absolutely.
Yeah, great having you
Thanks
guys.
for having us.